So let's review the project scope for the second project. This is going to be a save tweet into the local storage. The user can save new tweets using an HTML form, and they are going to be saved into local storage. The messages are going to be saved into local storage. An unlimited number of messages can be added into the storage. When the page is loading, the messages should be loaded also from local storage, and they are going to be displayed in the page. The user can remove messages, and this will remove also these messages from the local storage. So let's review the project. So this is going to be the project, something really simple, but we're going to learn how to read the values from this text area. So we're going to add something like this, learning modern JavaScript, and we can click here on save tweet, and you can see we have tweet added. Clicking on OK, and you can see the form is reset, and we have this on the list. So let me add a second one, checking this awesome project, and I'm gonna add a second tweet. You can see we have tweet added. Okay, now we have 2 items into my tweets. So the advantage of using local storage is that we can reload this, and since we are saving this into the storage, these values are going to be read from the local storage and are going to be displayed right here. So for example, let's say that you want to remove one of these, you can click here. It's going to remove this from the tweets, and again you can reload, and you can see that we removed the other tweet, but this one is still there. So this is going to be the second project. You are going to learn a lot in this project, basically these form submissions and also local storage. In the course materials for this chapter, you will find this local storage form. We're going to open this into the editor, and we're going to open also the index.html. We're going to open this with live server, and this is going to be the project that we're going to build. It's going to be really simple, something to practice a little more the local storage. So the idea here is that we have this text area. We're going to write something. So for example, learn JavaScript, and once you click here on save tweet, it's going to display the tweet here on the right, and this is going to be saved also in the local storage. Also, it will have the ability to remove this using local storage also. So let's open the project, and you can see that we have this index.html. If I make this a little bigger, you can see that we have this form. It has this ID called form. Also, the text area has this ID called tweet, so we're going to access this using this ID and this submit. Here on the right, we have this tweet list. This is where we are going to print the tweets once we press save tweet here on the button. So this is really simple HTML. You can see this one is built using a framework called Skeleton. We have also a custom CSS, so you can open this CSS folder and you can see some of the styling for this example. If you open the JavaScript folder, you will find this app.js, and this is going to be an empty file. So we're gonna start working with this. So I'm gonna divide this into 3 different sections. We're gonna call this one variables. This part is going to be for the event listeners, and the functions are going to be right here. So this is going to be a more organized way to, well, organize the functionality of this project. So here in the event listeners, I'm going to add a function. This is going to be a function called event listeners. So we're going to add event listeners, and the first event listener that we're going to need is the form submission. So we need to add, for example, document that query selector. And if you remember, we can select this, for example, using this tag called form, or also the ID. So something like this if you want to use the tag, or something like this if you want to use the ID. Then we're gonna attach the event listener right here, submit, and then this is going to run a function called new tweet. So we're gonna create this function also. Right here I'm going to add function, new tweet, and we're gonna pass the event first, because when we submit this, we want to prevent the default. prevent the default. So this is going to stop the form from submitting, and here on the functions, we're going to add the code that is going to be executed instead of the default behavior. So finally, this is going to be event listener. So this must be called right here. And we're gonna make a test. We're gonna add right here, console.log, form submitted like this. Just to test that everything is working, we're gonna inspect the element, open the console, and write something if you want. Click on save tweet, and you can see that we're preventing the default first, and then the form is submitted. You can see that we have this text right here. So everything is working. The event listeners are set. The form is working, is communicating with this function. So in the next video, we're gonna continue building this project. So let's continue building this project. Now that we have these functions, we're gonna read the value that we have in this text area. So we're gonna add a comment, read the text area value. And we're gonna add the following const. It's going to be equal to a tweet. Then we're gonna use document, get element by ID. Of course, you can use also query selector. And the ID that we are trying to read is going to be this text area, and we have this tweet. So get element by ID doesn't require the pound sign. So we're gonna add tweet dot value. So we're gonna console.log this tweet. Save this and type something here and add save tweet. And you can see that we have the same value. So we're gonna create, each of these are going to be inserted right here on the my tweets. My tweets has a list, a div called tweet list that is empty, and we're gonna create the elements using JavaScript. So we're gonna remove this, and we're gonna create an li element. So we're gonna add the following: let li, we can use also const li equals to document dot create element, and we're gonna create a list item. Then we're gonna add li text content, and the text content is going to be equals to this tweet. So this is going to be the text inside the li. Finally, we need to grab this tweet list. So I'm gonna copy this ID, and here on the top, I'm going to create as a global variable. So this is going to be accessed by all the functions. Const tweet list is going to be equals to document get element by ID, and then we pass this ID. So now this is going to be available in all the program. So we're going to add this tweet list, and we're gonna use append child, and then we pass this li. So let's make a test. We're gonna reload right here, save this and reload right here. We're gonna add something, my new tweet, and save tweet, and now you can see we have my new tweet right here, and this is going to create the li. You can see that we have document create element, and we create the li, and then it's going to inject also the text, because we're grabbing the value from here, and we're inserting this text as a text content for the li. Then we read the parent, which is going to be this tweet list, and we add append child to insert this into the DOM. At the moment, this is going to be only on the DOM, so if we reload, we're gonna miss everything, but you can see that this is working. Learn JavaScript and save this, and you can see that this is working. We need to add a button right here if we want to remove this once we have the local storage. So we're gonna continue right here in the new tweet. I'm going to create a comment, create the remove button, and it's going to be like this, const, it's going to be remove btn, and we're gonna create another element, document create element, and this is going to be an anchor. Then we're gonna use remove btn, and we're gonna add a class. It's going to be class list, and we're gonna add a new class that is going to be called remove tweet. So this way we can use delegation. Of course, we're gonna add that functionality in the upcoming videos. Finally, we're gonna use remove btn that text content, and this is going to be the text inside the anchors. So we're gonna add an X, something like this. Then we're gonna add the remove button to each tweet that is generated. And it's going to be after the LI is created, right here. So we're gonna create the anchor, then we're gonna create the LI, and then we're gonna add LI, append child, and we're gonna add the remove button. So this is going to add the remove button, and this tweets list, we're gonna cut this, and right here, add to the list, and it's going to be the tweet list, is going to be adding this LI. So a quick recap, we're going to create these buttons to remove each tweet. Then we're gonna create the LI that will hold the LI and also the tweet that we are typing into the text area. Then inside these LIs, we're going to add the button. So each of these tweets is going to have their own remove tweet button. And finally, we're going to add everything to the main tweet list. So save this and let's make a test. Learning JavaScript and save tweet. Now you can see we have learning JavaScript and we also have this X. It looks like this because we already have, for example, if I open the custom CSS, I already added some styling right here. Remove tweet and remove tweet on hover. So if we add another one, we're gonna add, for example, and we're gonna see how you can clear this and go to the gym and save tweet. Now you can see we have two different ones and each of these has the remove button. So this is looking nice. And in the next video, we're gonna see how you can remove this, for example. So let's continue building this project in the next video. So let's continue building this project. Now you can see that we have two different tweets right here. They are added into the DOM. So if we make a refresh, we're gonna lose everything, but I'm gonna show you something really quick. I'm gonna inspect right here, and you can see that these LIs both have this anchor and both have the same class. So we're gonna use delegation in order to know which of these buttons was clicked when the user tries to remove one of these tweets. You can see that we have this tweet list, and this is already a global variable, so we can attach the event listener right here. Remove tweet from the list, and we're gonna use tweet list. So now you can see why I added this as a global variable. It's going to be used right here, and also it's going to be used here on the bottom, the tweet list. So it's going to be used in both functions that we have at this moment. And we're gonna add an event listener right here. And this is going to be a click. So every time someone clicks in one of these, we're gonna execute this function. And this function is going to be called remove tweet, like this. So we're gonna copy this, and we're gonna add a comment, removes the tweets from the DOM function, and remove tweet. And in order to access to delegation, we need to pass the event right here. So we're gonna add, for example, if e.target. Remember, target is going to print the element that was pressed. And right here we have this class, a class remove tweet. So we're gonna use class list that contains, and we're gonna pass remove tweet. In case that this is true, we're gonna print right here yes, and else we're going to add console.log no, something like this. So we're gonna save this, and this is going to remove everything. Let's add something really fast right here, something like this, and I'm gonna open the console. If you click here, you can see that we're printing no. That's because we're using this delegation, and this is listening to any click that we make into the tweet list. But let's click on this X, and now you can see we have yes. So we're gonna remove this else, and right here, instead of having this console.log yes, we're gonna use e.target, and you can see If I inspect the elements again, inspect this, you can see that we are on the anchor. We need to go one level up and remove this li. So we're gonna add e.target parent element and then remove. So we're gonna click this remove item, and then we're gonna scale one level to the li, and then it's going to be removed. So remove is going to be right here, only when you click on the remove tweet. So save this, and let's add something like learning.js, save tweet, let's add another one, save tweet, and one last one like this. So save tweet. Now you can see we have 3 different items. So let's remove this one in the middle, and you can see we click and it's gone, and the other ones are right here. Click this and click this, and now we have the ability to add elements into the DOM and also to remove tweets from the DOM. So in the next video, let's add the function that is going to save these tweets into the local storage. So this project is looking nice. You can see now we have the ability to create tweets, remove. You can also add another one. And in this video, we're gonna add the functionality to save this into the local storage. If you add something here and then reload, you're gonna miss everything. So we need to save this into the storage. So let's open the code, and right here you can see we have this function that is called new tweet. So we're gonna create a new function right here, or we're gonna execute a new function that is gonna be called add tweet to add tweet local storage. Something like this. The idea always when you're working with functions is that you create small functions. If you write a really big function, then it's going to be harder to reuse the functions. So here we're going to insert everything into the DOM, but then I'm going to create this new function. And I'm going to call this one, we're going to add the comment right here, adds the tweets into the local storage. And we're going to create the function, add tweet local storage. In this function, you have to pass, for example, the text, the content. This that we have here, dot value. We need to pass this in order to use this information into local storage. So we're going to add another comment right here. It's going to be add to local storage. So something really simple here. I'm going to add console.log, and we're going to add hello from local storage function. So this way we're making sure that this function is called from this other function. So something really quick, and let's open the console. You can see we have hello from a local storage function. So these functions are communicating well, so we're gonna remove this. And first we're gonna read the previous data from storage. Same example as we did before, but in this case I'm going to create another function. Function get tweets from storage, like this. So this is going to be the function that is going to be, or is going to execute the get item into the storage. So let's write this function first. We're gonna create let tweets, and then we're gonna get the values. If null is returned, then we create an empty array. Same example as we did in the last chapter. If local storage dot get item is equals to tweets, and if this value is null, then tweets is going to be an empty array. Else, then we're going to use tweets equals, and if you remember, we're going to save this as an array. We're going to use a function called JSON.stringify, and in order to convert that function from a string into an array, we're going to use JSON.parse. Same code that we saw in the previous video. So in this case, we're going to use local storage, get item, and we're going to pass tweets. You can see that we are reusing, or we have the same code right here. So we can create also another variable, const tweets ls from local storage is going to be equals to this code. And we're gonna add this variable right here and also right here. So something like this is going to work. So the idea of this get tweets from storage is that we can reuse this functionality in other functions. So in this case, we're gonna return the tweets. So this is going to return the value. So we're gonna use this into this function. So it's going to be like this. We're gonna create a new variable, let tweets, that is going to be equals to get tweets from storage. So you can see that when we add a new tweet, we're going to execute this add tweet into local storage. Then we're gonna be in this function, and this function is gonna call this one that is going to read the values from storage. It's going to use these functions, JSON parse, or create an empty array, but everything is going to be into this variable. So we can add something here like console.log tweets and check the values, check that everything is working. Let's add something fast right here, save console, and now you can see we have an empty array because at the moment the get items in the local storage doesn't have anything. So it's going to create this empty array. So we're going to remove this. So now this is an array. We can add the tweet into the array using tweets, which is the previous function that we have here. This is going to return, remember, the array with all the tweets from the storage, or also the array that is empty, but always is going to be an array. So we're going to add tweets that push, and we're going to push the tweet that is passed into this function. If you remember, we're passing the tweet, which is the value that we are reading from the text area. So we're going to add that into the array. Then we're going to convert this array into a string, and we're going to add this into local storage. So let's add convert tweet array into a string, and we're going to use local storage dot set item, and we're going to call this one, this one is called tweets. Then we add a comma, and we're going to use a function called JSON dot stringify, and we're going to pass this array tweets, which in this case we added the tweet using dot push. So save this. Let's add something here really fast. Save. Now let's open application, and now you can see we have tweets, and we have added the first tweet. If we add another one, and save, now you can see that we have an array with two different items. So this is working well. If you reload this, we're gonna miss the contents from the sidebar, from the my tweets, because we need to write a function that is going to grab this value and print the contents right here when the page is loaded. So in the next video, we're going to write that function. In this video, we're going to write a function that every time this page loads, is going to read these values from the storage, and is going to print the tweets here on my tweets. So we need to open the code again, scroll to the top. Here on the event listeners, if you already have experience working with jQuery, there is a function called document ready. It's going to be really similar, but this is going to be the JavaScript way. So we're going to add document dot add event listener, and this event is called DOM content loaded, like this. DOM in uppercase, C uppercase, and also the letter L. So we're gonna add a comma, and we're gonna call this function local storage on load. So we need to write this function. Copy this and scroll to the bottom, and we're gonna add prints local storage tweets on load. So we're gonna write a function and the name of the function. In this case, we don't have to pass the event. This is going to be every time this page is loaded. So we need to read these values from the applications. If you remember, we have already this function that is called get tweets from storage. So we're going to add something like this. Let tweets equals to get tweets from storage, and then we're going to add console.log, and we're going to send these tweets to the console. So save this, open the console, and now you can see we have the tweets right here. So using this function, you can see that this already creates the JSON.parse. So this is already an array. And you can see now the benefit of using this function. We can use this in the add tweet to local storage and also in local storage on load. So we're going to remove this. So this is already an array. We can use a for each and print each element. So we're going to add loop through storage and then print the values. We're gonna use this array tweets, then for each, and this is going to be a function. We have tweets, in this case it's going to be tweet to print the individual value for this one, and then we're gonna use a really similar code as the one that we have right here on the top. So we're gonna copy this and paste right here. So we're gonna create an element. It's gonna create an anchor with the class remove button and also the X. It's gonna create an li by default. With this li, then it's going to add the content from the tweet. You can see we have the same variable name right here. And also it's going to add this remove button into the li. And finally this tweet list, which is the global right here, is going to be used as also in this function. So save this, and now you can see every time we reload, we have these tweets already into the my tweets list. So if you remove these, they are going to be removed from the DOM. But if you reload, they are going to be here. So we need to write another function that is going to remove this from the local storage. So let's see how you can do that in the next video. So now we're reading the tweets from the local storage. The problem that we're facing now is that every time we remove this and we reload, they are going to reappear. So let's write a function that is going to remove also the tweets from the storage. So let's open the code, and right here we have this remove tweet. After we call this remove tweet, I'm going to call a function that is called remove from storage. And we're going to add a function called remove tweet local storage. So we're going to name this function like this. And we need to pass the text. We need to pass actually the text that we want to remove. So for example, I'm going to add a console.log right here. Console.log. And we can access that text by adding e.target.parent element and then reading that value using text content. So we're going to comment this because we haven't created this function yet. And let's create one of these. And let's remove one of these. You can see that this is going to print the value. But since we are adding this anchor, and this is part of the tweet, it's going to add also this X. You can see, let's remove this one. It says another one, but it's adding also the X. We already saw how you can remove these parts from a string. So we're gonna fix this in this function. We're gonna remove this, and we're gonna pass that text into the remove tweet from local storage. I'm gonna scroll to the bottom, and we're gonna create this function. We're gonna create the comment removes the tweet from local storage, and we're gonna create the function remove tweet local storage. This is going to take a tweet, and let's make the test. We're gonna add console.log just to make sure that the functions are properly communicated. Let's add something like here. Save this, click here. Now you can see we have here. If we send this value to the console, save this, click here. Now you can see we have the text, and we need to remove this X. We're gonna remove this X using substring. But first we're gonna create the variable called let tweets that is going to be equals to this get tweets from local storage. So now this function is going to be used in 3 different functions. Instead of repeating the same code in all the functions, we write this function and we can reuse this in the program. So next I'm going to, let's add a comment right here. Get tweets from storage. And then right after here, we're gonna remove the X from the tweet. So we can use also, for example, another function, another variable, sorry. We're gonna call this one, for example, const tweet delete. And we're gonna add tweet, which is coming from the other function and contains this X. We're gonna add tweet dot substring. And if you remember, if you add, for example, a 0 right here, and then you add tweet that length -1 is going to remove the last character. So we can console.log this, console log this tweet delete. So save this and click here. And now you can see we remove the X using this function substring. Now, in order to remove this, you can see that we have only the strings. There is no index like a database or something. Using a database, for example, SQL, you can select the ID and remove that. In this case, it's going to be a little different. We're going to remove this. And we're going to read these tweets. And we're going to loop through the tweets and remove the tweet that is equal. So we're gonna create a for each. So we're gonna use tweets. And remember that we have this function that is returning the tweets from the storage and is formatted also in an array. So we're gonna use for each tweets.forEach, and we're gonna write a function. This is going to be the singular name. We have tweets in plural because this is an array, but using for each, we're going to access the individual value. So it's a good idea to use tweet. But I think we're going to call this one tweet ls because this is the tweet from local storage, because we already have a tweet right here, tweet. So to avoid confusion, we're going to call this one tweet ls. So in this case, we're going to add an if, and we're gonna tweet delete in case that this tweet delete is equal to the current tweet ls when we are doing the for each. I'm going to add console.log. Yes, something really simple. At the moment it doesn't remove anything. So we're gonna reload here, we're gonna click here, and you can see we have yes, because we are reading the value this text and it found the text into the array. So we're almost done. The idea here is, for example, if I send this console tweets to the console, save this, is that if you open the console and click here on remove, you can see that we have 2 different items. What we are doing here is to compare this text that we already grabbed from the tweet, and using substring we remove the X, is to compare this value with any of these that exist on the array from local storage. Now, we're going to remove this because this is already an array. If you remember, there is a function to remove elements from the middle of an array. Of course, there are other functions to remove elements from the beginning or from the end, but in this case, we are not really sure which element the user is going to remove. So we're going to use splice, which, remember, you pass the index and how many items you want to remove, and it's going to remove the elements from the array. But we need to pass the original array. So in the case that the tweet to delete is equals to the current tweet in the for each, we're going to remove that. We're going to add tweets dot splice. And if you remember, we need to pass the index. It's hard to know which is the index, but gratefully the for each, if you add a comma right here and pass index, is going to tell you which is the index. So you can pass the index right here. Second parameter of the splice is going to be how many items you want to remove. In this case, we only want to remove the element that is click. So we're going to add 1. Finally, if you open this console, you can see that the array has 2 items. When we run this as splice, it's going to remove an element from the array. So let's add something simple here, like console.log tweets. Save this, click here, and now you can see when you click here, it's printing 2 different items in the array. This is right here. Then we make the for each and we use a splice that is going to remove one of these. And at the moment, we only have 1 element. So this is going to be the rest of the array that we need to pass into local storage. So we're going to add local storage dot set item, and the local storage item, the value, the key is called tweets. So we're going to pass tweets right here. Then we add a comma, and this is going to be an array. So we're going to use JSON.stringify that will convert that array into a string, and we pass tweets. So we're going to add a comment right here, save the data. So at this moment, the array is going to be remove the element that we want to take away from local storage. Is going to be inserted into local storage again. So reload this, let's remove this one, remove. And now you can see we have only 1 item called another one. You can see that this is printing something here. We can remove this, and we are not going to need this. So remove this and reload this. And now you can see we only have 1 tweet. So now we can save this. So if you add something else, learning.js, and you save the tweet, now you can see we have 2 tweets. Reload this, and you can see that the values are there, and you can remove this. Reload again, and you can see we have another one. So this one, this project is working, and now you have the ability to create tweets from the text area, display these into the HTML, and remove them from local storage. A really complete project, in my opinion. So let's finish this example. Let's scroll to the top. Here we have this new tweet. And right after we add a new tweet, I'm gonna print an alert. Something really simple. Print the alert. And we're gonna add an alert. Tweet added. And let's add something here. And click on save. Tweet added. Okay, and if you reload, you can see that we have the content and everything is working just fine. If you wanna clear the console, so for example, you add something and you click it on save tweet, you can see that we have something here. If you wanna clean the text area, right here on the function, and right here you can see we have tweet and we have this value, and we can read the form, this new tweet. And we can pass, for example, the keyword this that reset. So this is going to be the current form that we have here on the top. And this one that is submitted. So you can add something else, save, tweet added, okay, and it's going to clean the form. So this is going to refer the element that triggered this function, which in this case is the form, when we make the submission. So this was a really complete project in my opinion, and you can see that we put in practice everything that we saw in the fundamentals. So let's continue in the next chapter. We're gonna see another project that is called the shopping cart. So let's review the project scope for the shopping cart, and this is going to be the first project. The user can add courses into the shopping cart. It's going to be one of the features of this project. And also the user can remove courses from the shopping cart. Also, the shopping cart content is going to be saved into local storage. This is going to be really nice because saving this in the local storage, the user can reload the page and everything is going to be there because it's saved into the storage. The shopping cart is going to display the contents from the local storage when the page loads. And finally, when a course is removed from the shopping cart, it's going to be removed also from local storage. So let's review the project. This is going to be the interface for this project. You can see we have some courses right here. We're gonna, for example, I'm gonna select this HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript for beginners. We're gonna click here on Add to Cart. And I'm gonna select this one also, Guitar for beginners. So we're gonna select 2 courses into the shopping cart. Then the shopping cart, I'm gonna scroll to the top. And here you can see that we have these 2 courses into the cart. So I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna reload this. And these courses are going to be saved into the local storage. So once the user comes back to this website and opens the cart, the elements are going to be here. And the user is going to be able to remove one of these. So you can remove this and again reload. And you can see that we have this in the local storage. So we can add another course. And you can see we have another course. So reload again. And you can see that we have the courses saved into the storage. So this is a really nice project. This is going to be the first project of this course. And with this project, you are going to learn the basics of DOM scripting and also local storage. In the course materials for this chapter, you will find this shopping cart folder. So we're going to open this into Visual Studio Code. Open the index and right click to open this with Live Server. Open again. And this is going to be the same project that we already worked in the previous videos. This Udemy clone. The only difference is that here in the shopping cart, it doesn't have anything. The idea of this chapter is that every time you click here on Add to Cart, it's going to be adding the items right here. But also something really important is that we're gonna save the courses into the local storage. This is going to be a more deeper example of DOM scripting, also in local storage, than the previous one. But we're gonna continue practicing everything that we learned in the fundamentals. So again, we're gonna create 3 sections here. We're gonna create the variables on the top. Then we're gonna create some listeners. And finally, we're gonna create the functions. So in this case, we're gonna need 3 different variables. We're gonna need one for the shopping cart. We're going to need another one with this list of courses. And also other one to clear this cart. So first we're gonna start with the section. For example, if I open the index, if you scroll a little, you can see that we have this courses list. This is the wrapper with all the courses. So we're gonna create a variable right here. Cons, we're gonna call this one courses. It's going to be equals to document, query selector, and we're gonna pass the ID. It's going to be courses list. Then we're gonna create the event listeners. So we're gonna call this one load event listeners. Of course, remember you can name this wherever you want. Then we need to create this function. So load event listeners. And here we're going to add all the event listeners for this project. So first we're gonna, when a new course is added, it's going to be like courses dot add event listeners. We're gonna use delegation again. Click, and it's going to run a function called by course. So we need to create this function. So we're gonna add this function here on the bottom. And in order to use delegation, remember you have to pass the event. So we're gonna use console.log and we're gonna add course added. Something like this, yeah, just to make sure that everything is working before we continue adding more content. So we're gonna open console, scroll, click here, and you can see we have course added. So the variables are working just fine in the functions. So I'm gonna remove this And we're gonna add a comment right here that says use delegation to find the course that was added into the shopping cart. So we're gonna use if e.target. Remember that you can always send these values to the console, e.target. And just need to comment this line in order to see this working. And click here and you can see that this is going to print the element that was clicked. So we're gonna add e.target, and you can see that we have the class add to cart right here. So we're gonna use e.target.classList that contains, and we're gonna use add to cart. So we're gonna add console.log added, something like this, something simple just to test that everything is working. So save this and click here on the add to cart, and you can see we have added. If you want to remove this, for example, this jump, you can see here, you can add, remember, a.prevent default, because this is going to be the standard behavior in the browser. When you have a link and you click, it will try to open the link, and you can see if we add prevent default, we prevent that jump that we saw in the just a little. So we're gonna make something else before we finish this video. We're gonna read the course values. So you can see that we have contains add to cart, and this is going to print the button that we have here. So I want to read these values. So we're gonna use parent element to read everything from the cart. So we're gonna use console.log e.target.parent element. So we're gonna make the traversing like this, and click here, and now you can see we have the cart. So from here we can have access, for example, to this text, the author, the price, and if you take a look here, we also have this data dash ID. So each of these courses has a different ID. So using this, we're gonna have access to everything, also the image. That's going to be important. So I'm gonna cut this, and we're gonna create a new variable called const course equals to this value, and then we're gonna read the values. So we're gonna create a new function that is going to be called get course info, and we're gonna pass this course information. So we need to copy this function, and we're gonna create a new comment that says reads the HTML information of the selected course. Then we add this function get course, and this is going to take a course as a parameter, and then we can add console.log course like this. And just to make the test that everything is working, I'm gonna save this, open the console, click here, you can see we have this card, click here, and now you can see we have that card. So this delegation code is working. In the next video, let's start working with this function to extract the HTML from the course that was selected. So we have this function get course info. We are passing this course, which is the complete card, and we're gonna make we're gonna write a code that is going to extract the code information. So we're gonna remove this and remove this. And first we're gonna create an object. So we're gonna create an object with course data. So it's going to be like this, const course info, and it's going to be equals to the object. Remember, the object and the array, they have difference, but one of these is that the object will have these curly braces and also will have these properties. So we're gonna add image. The image is going to be equals to the course. Remember, we're passing the complete card, so that's going to be available. The whole content is going to be available, and we can use query selector. In query selector, we can add, for example, img, and I need the path to the image, so we can add src. Then we add a comma. Then we need the title of the course, so we're gonna add course again, query selector, and we're gonna Well, let's see, for example, first, let's open this, and you can see the title of the course is using H4. So we're gonna add H4. Comma right here, and we're gonna add the price. Price is going to be equal to course, and query selector again. And the price that we are interested is this one inside the span. So we're gonna add query selector, class price, and also the span. But we need to add the text content. And here on the H4, we also need to grab the text content. And dot and text content like this. We need only the data. And the other way, we're going to extract also the tag. And finally, I want to add the ID. If you take a look here on the anchor, we have this attribute that is called data ID. So we're going to add ID. It's going to be equals to course, a dot, query selector, and we're gonna select the anchor. Then we're gonna get the attribute, get attribute, and it's going to be data dash ID. So then we can send this to the console just to check our object, course info, save this, and clicking one of these, and you can see we have the object, you can see we have the ID number 2, we also have the image, the price, and the title is this cooking course. So the object is looking nice. So now that we have this object, I'm gonna call another function, insert into the shopping cart, and this is going to be called add into cart, and we're gonna pass this object. So we need to write this function. This is going to display the selected course into the shopping cart. So we need to write this function add to cart, and this is going to take a course also. And this object is going to be passed into this function, this whole object. And then we're gonna create a tr. If you take a look here on the index and scroll to the top, we're looking for this shopping cart. This is a div, but it contains this table, and we have this table body. At the moment, this is empty, but we're going to insert the courses right here. And we need to use a table row for each of the courses that we're going to add into the shopping cart. So we're going to add const. It's going to be equals to a row. Let me center this a little. Then this is going to be equals to document, and we're going to use again create element. We're going to create a table row, and then we're going to build the template from the course object that we pass into this function. So we're gonna use row dot, and we're gonna use inner HTML. This is going to print the HTML from this template string or template literal. Something like this. Remember to use the backtip. Single quotes doesn't work with template literals. So right here we can build the structure that we need. In this case we need a table row, so we need also the closing table row. And then we need the table data. We're gonna add, for example, the image, the title, and the price. Also, we're going to add a button to remove this course from the shopping cart. So we're gonna add a TD, the close of the TD, and right here I'm going to add IMG, SRC, and I'm gonna close the tag. Then I'm gonna open the $sign, open the braces, and right here you can see we have course, so I'm gonna pass course because we have this object into this function. We pass the course info object into this function, and we need to access this image, so we're gonna add dot image. Remember that you access an object and their properties using a dot. So we're going to add another TD and close the TD right here. I'm gonna copy this, so copy this and paste right here. And this is going to be the title, course title, like this. Now we're gonna make 2 more copies of this. The other one is going to be the price, so we're gonna add price right here. And the last one is going to be an anchor. So I'm gonna again make some space right here. And we're gonna use a href. It's going to be equals to the pound sign we're gonna create a class called remove, and we're gonna add data ID. In this case, it's going to be equals to course, and you can see the property is called ID. So we're gonna add ID, and the text is going to be an X. Then we close the anchor, and this is going to close the table data. So the idea of this template is that it's going to be added into this card content right here into the table body. So we need to create that variable. Let's open the app.js, scroll to the top, so a comma right here, comma, and we're gonna call this one shopping cart content. That is going to be equals to document that query selector, and the ID is going to be this cart content. So we use the pound sign and cart content. Cart content, and then this table body, the body. So now this variable is going to be available in all the program, and we can insert, scroll to the bottom, we can insert this row into that table body. So the comment add into the shopping cart, and we're gonna add shopping cart content dot append child, and we're gonna pass that row. So save this, and let's add another one. Let's add any course from here. Let's, for example, this one, HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript for beginners. Click here on add to cart, and then scroll to the top, and now you can see that we have the course information. We have the image, we have the title, and also we have the price and this X to remove this from the list. If I reload this, you can see that we lost everything because we haven't saved this into a local storage, but this was working. If I add one of these, you can see that the image is really big, so we're gonna, right here, I'm gonna add an attribute with something like 100 pixels. I think it's going to be fine. So let's add another one. And yeah, you can see that this looks way better. The image really small, the name of the course, the price, and we also have this X to remove the course from the shopping cart. So in the next video, let's see how we can add the functionality to remove the courses from the shopping cart. So we have added the functionality to add elements into the cart. Let's see how we can make this button functional in order to click here and remove elements from the cart. You can see that here on the top, I added this shopping cart content. We're gonna use this and we're gonna apply some delegation in order to add something like that. When the remove button is clicked, we're gonna run this. It's going to be shopping cart content, add event listener, and this is going to react for a click. This one is going to be called remove course. So we're gonna copy this and we're gonna take this to the bottom and remove course from the DOM. We're gonna add a function, we're gonna remove course, and remember, in order to work with delegation, you need to pass the event. This way we're gonna have access to e.target. So same as we did before, we're going to add if e.target, and you can see, for example, yeah, I'm gonna check the source code right here. You can see we have shopping cart, open this table, open the table body also, open one of these, open the TD, and you can see we have a class called remove. So we're gonna add e.target .class list .contains, and we're gonna pass that class remove. So then we're gonna be in this position. Remember, traversing, you have to define a starting point, and then you're gonna use the functions to reach the point that you are trying to achieve. In this case, we're going to be here. A parent element is going to take us right here. So we're going to need another parent element. So we need two parent elements right here. e.target .parent element .parent element .remove is going to remove the course from the DOM. So you can see at the moment the cart is empty. Let's add this into the cart. Scroll to the top, click here, and now you can see that the course is gone from the shopping cart. So this is working nice. Another thing that we can make really fast is, for example, react to this clear cart button. So we're going to define that button. We're gonna open this, scroll to the top. And here right after this table body, I'm gonna add a comma. We're gonna call this one clear cart btn. It's going to be equals to document dot query selector. And if you take a look here on the HTML, this one is called clear cart in the ID. So query selector will require the pound sign, clear cart, and we need to add also the listener, clear cart btn. So we're gonna clear cart btn. It's going to be add event listener also. It's going to be a click, and this is going to clear the cart. So we need to write this function. Scroll to the bottom, and we're going to add function clear cart, and we're gonna also add some comments. So we're gonna add clears the shopping cart, and there are two ways to clear the cart. I'm gonna show you both. You can see that we already have this shopping cart content, and it says table body. So we can select this and paste right here. And we can add something like shopping cart inner HTML and then pass the HTML empty. So this is going to insert this HTML empty. It's going to take all the HTML that is there and it's going to override the HTML inside the table body with a string that is empty. So let's add these 3 courses. You can see we have 3, and you can click here on a clear cart and it's going to remove everything. So let's review the second method. This one is usually the recommended way. I'm gonna comment this line, and this will require an extra code, but it's the recommended way of doing it. We're gonna add a while, then we're gonna add shopping cart content, and I'm gonna add first child. While there is a first child, we're gonna add shopping cart content and then remove child. So we need to pass the sons of this, which is going to be shopping cart content first child. So this is going to clean also the cart. So you can see at the moment the cart is empty. So let's add these courses again. You can see we have it like this. Clear the cart, and you can see that everything is gone. This option requires extra code, but is more recommended than this one. So this project is looking nice. Now we have the ability to add courses into the shopping cart and remove them, also to clear the whole cart. So in the next video, let's see how we can add the selected courses into the local storage. So let's see how we can add these courses into local storage. We're gonna open again the project, and right after we insert this into the HTML, you can see here we have everything. All the information is going to be added right here. So we're going to call another function that is called, let's add course into storage, something like that. So here we are going to add the function that is going to be called save into storage, and we're going to pass this whole object right here. So we're gonna create this function. Maybe right after we create this one. Add the courses into the local storage. We're gonna create a function. It's going to be called like this, and it's going to take a course as the parameter. So then we're gonna create another function. This one is going to get the contents from storage. So we're gonna create a function get courses from storage, and this one doesn't take any parameters, but we're gonna do something like this. We're gonna create a function. We're gonna call this one courses, and the same as we did in the last example, we're gonna check if the courses key exists, and if the key doesn't exist, we're gonna create an empty array. So if something exists on storage, then we get the value. Otherwise, create an empty array. This is what this function does. So we're gonna add if local storage. We're gonna call this one courses. In the case that this is equals to null, we're going to add courses as an empty array. In the other hand, we're going to call courses is going to be equals to json.parse, and it's going to be equals to local storage dot get item, and this is going to return the courses. So again, this is going to return the course is courses right here in plural. So courses. So now we're gonna use this function in all the different functions. Starting from here, from the save into courses, we're gonna let courses equals to get courses from storage, like this. So at this point, this courses is going to be an array with empty or with something, but it's going to be an array. So we're going to add the course into the array using courses that push. We pass this course like this, and now we're going to have this as an array. And remember, since storage only saves strings, we need to convert JSON into string. We're gonna use local storage set item. It's going to be courses, comma, and then we're gonna use JSON that stringify, and we pass the array called courses. So save this, create. Let's add one of these, maybe this one, the first one. Open the console. You can see that there are no errors. Open the application, and now you can see we have courses into the storage, and you can see that we have the image, and we have also the title right here. We have also the price, and we have the ID. So you can see that this is an array, but it's actually an object. So we're saving everything right here. So using this technique, JSON.stringify, you can save arrays, you can save arrays with objects and others. But now you can see that everything is into the storage. I'm gonna remove this, reload, and now you can see that we have all this content right here. So in the next video, the idea is that when we open this for the very first time, we're gonna see the elements in the shopping cart. So let's continue working in the next video. So before we continue working with this storage, we're gonna print the contents from the storage in the shopping cart when the page is loaded. So we're gonna open the project, scroll to the top, and right here we're gonna create the document ready. So it's going to be document that add event listener, and the event is going to be DOM content loaded. Then we create a comma, then we add a comma. We're going to call a function called get from local storage. So get from local storage is going to be a new function. So we're going to scroll to the bottom. Loads when document is ready, and print courses into shopping cart. So we create a function, and we're gonna call get from local storage. So first we're gonna call this function, the get courses from storage. It's a really similar function, but the other one will read the values from the storage, and this one is going to print the contents. So now we have courses. I'm gonna call this one courses ls, since they are courses from the local storage, and then we're gonna loop through the courses and print into the cart like this. Then we're going to have courses ls, courses ls, then for each function, and we're gonna print each course. So it's going to be course like this. And then we're gonna create the table row. So again, remember that we have the table body. If we scroll to the top, the cart content, shopping cart content, is pointing to this table body. So scroll to the bottom. we're gonna create a constant that is going to be equals to a row, document that create element, table row like this, and then we're gonna print the content. We're gonna call this one row, and we're gonna use again inner HTML equals to template or string literals, and it's going to be really similar to the code that we already have written, this one. So I'm gonna copy this and paste. It's really similar. Actually, it's the same because we have the course, we have the image, the title, the price, and everything is going to be the same. So before we close the for each, we need to print this into the shopping cart. So we're going to add shopping cart content dot append child, and we're going to insert the row. So save this, open the console. You can see that we don't have any errors, and when the page loads for the first time, we're gonna see the course from the local storage. So something that we can make here is, for example, the clear cart, add the functionality to clear from local storage also. So this is going to run this clear cart function, and right after we're going to add the method clear from local storage. And we're gonna call this clear local storage. This is going to execute this code, and we're gonna create the function clears the wall local storage function, clear local storage, and this is going to run local storage dot clear. So it's going to be like this. Open the application, and you can see that we have courses right here. Click here on clear cart, and you can see that everything is gone. So this is looking nice. In the next video, we're gonna see how we can add something here and how we can remove this from the local storage. You can see when I remove this, and if I reload, the course is going to be also in the storage. So we need to write the function that is going to remove this from the storage. So let's write the code that is going to remove the courses from the local storage. If you open the project, you can see, for example, that we have this remove course function. This one is going to remove the contents from the shopping cart or from the DOM. Remove from the DOM. We need to create a function that is going to remove from the local storage. And right here, we're going to create a variable or two different variables, course and course ID, like this, because we need to access the ID. You can see that here we have an ID, so it's going to be easier to remove something using an ID instead of looking for the title. In the last chapter, we built a project where you can see the functionality to remove this from the title, but in this case, I'm going to use this ID. So first, I'm going to console log those variables, console.log course first. And we're going to, right here where we remove the elements, we're going to add course is going to be equals to e.target. Remember, e.target is going to return this button that is removing everything. So we're going to use traversing parent element. Parent element is going to return the course that was removed. So that value is going to be there, and we're going to send this value to the console. So reload this, click here, and open the console, and you can see we have this table row, and this contains all the data that was here on the shopping cart. So with this information, you can see if I open this, we have the data ID. We're going to remove this using that ID. And we have this information into the course. We're going to use course ID is going to be equals to course, then query selector. We're going to query the anchor, and from there, we're going to add get attribute, and we're going to pass that ID. This is going to be added into the course ID, and we're going to send this into the console. So open this, and now you can see we have number 1. So we're going to send that ID to this new function, removed course local storage, and we're going to pass the course ID. So we need to create this function, remove course from local storage. I'm gonna add this right here, function remove from storage is going to take an ID. So right here I'm gonna add remove from local storage. And right here I'm gonna, again, we're gonna call the function, this one, get courses from local storage, copy this, paste right here, get the local storage data, and then we're gonna loop through the array and find the index to remove. So it's going to be like this, courses ls for each function, and we can pass, for example, the course local storage, and remember that we are going to use splice, so we are going to need the index. Then I'm going to add if, this one should be, this closing should be right here, an if statement. So we're going to if the course ls, so we're checking this, and if you take a look here on application, you can see that this is an object, so we need to access this ID. So it's going to be courses ls and a dot ID is equal to this ID that we're passing, and we get from this code. In case that this is true, we're going to add courses, the whole array, courses local storage, and you can see that here we have the name in singular, and here we have the name in plural. This name comes from this function, and we're going to add splice, then we pass the index, and we want to remove only one item. So save this, and this is going to take away this from the storage, but I'm gonna print that array into the console. Courses ls should be in plural. So save this, open the console and open the shopping cart, click here, and you can see that now we have an empty array. So let's add, for example, another one. Let's add 2 more courses. We're going to have 2, so we're gonna click here. You can see we have 2, and click here, and we're going to have only 1. So this is working fine. So from here, we're going to add the rest of the array. Now that we have taken away this item, we need to add this into the storage. Set item, courses in plural, and then JSON dot stringify, and we're gonna pass the courses in local storage, which is the complete array. So save this, and you can see that we have 3 different items. So let's remove this, and reload. And you can see that the card is empty because I added the same course twice. So I'm gonna add this, and this. So now you can see we have 3 different courses. Reload this, and you can see we continue having the same 3 courses. Let's remove this one, cooking course, reload this, and you can see that we continue having only these 2 courses. So let's remove this one, reload. You can see that this is working fine. So finally click here on Click Cart, and this is going to remove everything from the shopping cart. So now you can see that this was a more complex example, but I think that you have to be very proud of this work that we have made into this project. So in the next video, let's see another project that is going to contain more DOM scripting and less local storage. So let's continue working in the next video. So let's review the project scope for the tier project. You can see we have this called simulate email sending app. So we're going to open this and we're going to see the features. If any of the fields is empty, the user cannot send the email. We're going to validate the form fields also. And when submitting the form, a spinner is going to be displayed. A second spinner must be displayed after the email is sent, and also is going to clear the form. And finally, a reset button should be added into this form. So let's review the project. So this is going to be the app that we're going to use to simulate that we're sending an email. So you can see by default this send button is disabled. In order to enable this, we need to fill this form. So for example, here we are going to add the email. And if you add something like email.com and you click in this other field, you can see that this is printed in red. And this is because you have to add the @ sign. So if you add email at email.com and then you click on this second input, you can see that the validation now is successful. So let's fill the subject. We're going to add something like testing. And you can see that we have 2 validations completed, but the send button is disabled, so we need to add the message. So if you add something like hello, and then you click here, you can see the send button now is enabled. You can see that we have this reset button, so you can click here and this is going to clear the form and also is going to disable this. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Finally, let's add everything, testing and hello. You can see we have send, so we're going to click here on send, and you can see we have this GIF, and then this message telling us that the email was delivered. And then this is going to reset the form. So again, this is going to be a complete project, and you are going to learn a lot, especially DOM scripting and form validation. So this is going to be the project. In the course materials for this chapter, you will find this email. So let's open this into the editor. And we're going to open the index, right click here, and I'm going to open the live server. And you can see that this is running. So in this example, we're going to simulate an application that will send emails. Of course, this is not going to send any email, but I'm going to show you, for example, how to load these spinners, how to send this form, how to validate these fields, how to reset the form. So there is a lot of learning in this project. It's going to be a project where we are going to practice a lot the DOM scripting. So if we take a look here on the project, you can see this project is built on a framework called Materialize, and this is the work code that we have. So if I scroll a little, you can see that we have this form, and this is the ID. Also the email, the subject, and the text area. These fields have an ID. Also, you can see here we have the loaders and we have the buttons, send btn and reset btn. So we're going to open JS and I'm going to open the app.js. So here we're going to create the 3 sections, variables again, event listeners, and finally functions. This is a personal preference, of course. You can write this in the order that you feel comfortable. So let's create first the event listeners. Event listeners. Then we're going to create a function called event listeners. And we're going to call a function called app_init. So this is going to be the function that is going to be fired when this page loads for the first time. So we're going to add document.addEventListener. And we're going to call this one DOM content loaded like this. Then we're going to call this function app_init. So I'm going to copy this name and we're going to create the function right here. It's going to be called function like this, app_init, and this is going to be the app initialization. Like this. So the idea here is that, for example, when this loads for the first time, this send button is going to be disabled. Then with some events, we're gonna validate these fields. And once we have all the fields filled, this one is going to be enabled again. So here on the variables, I'm going to create a const. And we're gonna call this one sendBTN. It's going to be equals to document dot get element by ID, and we're gonna select this sendBTN. This is the ID, so we're gonna pass single quotes and sendBTN. So now we have this send button. Right here we're gonna disable the send button on load, and it's going to be sendBTN dot disable equals to true. This is going to disable the button. So save this, and now you can see that the send button is disabled, and if you try to click, nothing is going to happen. So in the next video, let's see, for example, how you can validate these fields and also create a special validation for these two fields. So let's continue working in the next video. In this video, we're gonna validate these three different fields. So we're gonna open the code, and you can see that, for example, the subject, this one, the email, and also the message, all these contain an ID. So we're gonna select this input ID. Here I'm gonna add a comma, and we're gonna call this one email. It's going to be equals to document get element by ID, and this field is called email. Then we're gonna create the subject. It's going to be equals to document get element by ID, and this one also has subject as the ID. Subject. Finally, we're going to add the message. It's going to be equals to document get element by ID, and remember that you can also use query selector. In this case, we're gonna select this message, and we're gonna validate right here. We're gonna validate the form. We're gonna add some listeners, and we're gonna use right here email dot add event listener, and we're gonna use the blur event listener. In this case, this function is going to be called validate field. So this function is going to be the same. So we're gonna create two more copies. We're gonna call this one subject. The last one is going to be the message. So we need to create this function now. Scroll to the bottom, and I'm gonna show you why I decided to use blur for this case. So we're gonna add a comment, validate the fields, and the function is called validate field, and we're gonna add console.log from validate field. Something like this will work. So the idea here, I'm gonna open the console, and when you are in these fields, the idea is that you are going to write something, but if you leave this empty, then it's going to run the validate field. In this case, when the user tries to switch to another field, it's going to run this function. And that's a nice place where we can validate that this contains something. So that's why we're using blur in this example. We're gonna remove this. We're gonna create a variable called errors. So we're gonna be adding elements into this errors variable. Then we're gonna validate the length of the field. So we're gonna create a new function called validate length. And in this case, we're gonna pass this. Remember that we have these 7 listeners, and these 7 listeners are going to execute this function. So when you pass this, you are actually passing the fields that we have added. So if you add validates the length of the fields, we're actually passing the complete field. So we're going to write this function. Function validate length, and this is going to take a field. We're passing this, but this is going to be these fields, email, subject, or message. So right here, we're gonna have access to the length using if. We're gonna use field, that value, and then if you remember, we can access the length of any string just by adding the method .length. If the method .length is greater than 0, then we're going to add the following field, and we're going to apply an styling style. Border bottom color is going to be equals to green. So this means that the validation is successful. And then we're going to add a class. If you remember, we have these errors. So we're going to return a class. Field.classList. And in this case, we're going to remove error just in case that we have any errors. And in the other hand, we're going to copy this. And this is going to be red. And we're going to add right here an error. So let's save this and let's open, for example, this object. Click inside, then click outside, and you can see that we have this red line. If you take a look here and you inspect the code, you will find that we have this class called error. So this part is being executed. The border bottom with the color red, and also is adding this class called error. If you come here and type something, then release the button, it's going to print the border in the bottom with green color. And it will remove also the class. So you can see the class is gone. So let's reload this and let's add something here directly. Then release the input, and you can see that it prints the border with green color, but it didn't remove the class because the class doesn't exist. So this code doesn't hurt if there is no error class, but it's going to be really helpful, especially, for example, if I reload again, click here and then click outside to remove this class if the class is there. So it's going to be really helpful, and that's why I'm using this code. So right after this, right after we validate the length, we're gonna validate the email. If you take a look here, for example, if we send to the console.log this and save this, I'm gonna open the two field, click here and then click outside. You can see that we have input ID, email, and the type is an email. So we can use this type and check. I'm gonna remove this. If this dot type is equals to an email, then I want to run a special validation, which is going to be validate email. And we're gonna pass the wall input. So this way, for example, the other two fields, the subject is a type text and the other one is a text area. This one are not equals to the type email. But the other one, this one, is type email, and we're going to check in this field if there is an @ sign, at least one @ sign. Validate email, checks for @ in the value, something like this function, and we're gonna validate the email, and this is going to take also a field, and then we're gonna add the next. We're gonna add email text is going to be equals to field dot value, so we can access the value that has written here, and then we're gonna check if the email text contains the @ sign. So we're gonna add if email text, and if you remember, we have a method called index_of. When index_of doesn't find anything, it's going to return a -1. So in this case, we're checking if this text contains this @ sign. So then probably it's going to be an email. So we're gonna check if index_of, and we're checking the @ sign, is not equal to -1. That means that we have passed the validation. So it's going to be a code really similar to this. So we're gonna copy and paste this code. But remember, this validate email function is going to run only when the type of email is equals to email. So reload this, and I'm gonna add the cursor right here in the 2, release, and you can see that we have the validation error. If you add something like hello, then it's going to trigger the validation error for the validate email. You need to have at least this @ sign. So you can add something like hello@hello.com and then click outside. And now you can see the border of the input now is in color green. So now you can see that our validation functions are working, and we also have this special validation function to validate the emails. So in the next video, we're gonna continue working with this. So let's continue building this project. Now we have added this validation, something really simple. So the next step is going to be, once we pass this validation, we're going to enable this send button. So right after this, I'm going to add a comment, and we're gonna check that the inputs are not empty. So we're gonna create an if statement. We're gonna add if, and here I'm going to add email that value, and if the email that value is not equals to an empty string, and we're gonna add an end. We're gonna add also subject that value is not equals to an empty string also, and finally the last one is going to be message, and we're gonna add value not equal to an empty string. So in case that they are not empty strings, we want to enable the button. But also, if you remember, here on the bottom we have added this error class. So for example, here on the let errors, we can give to this variable a value. So both validations that we have, validate length and validate email, are going to return an error in case that it doesn't pass the validation. So we're gonna add right here, and both, first the comment, both will return errors. Then check if there are any errors. So here we're gonna add errors equals to document, query selector, all, and we're gonna make a query if we have a class with the error. So we're going to check if there are any classes with the name error. If I copy and paste this, you can see that we have 3. In case that we pass this validation, something like email@email.com, and then we add a valid subject and a valid message, we can send again the query selector, and you can see the node list now is empty. So we're going to add another if statement right here. If errors that length is equals to 0, that means that we don't have any errors. So the button should be enabled. So we're gonna send btn that disable, and we're gonna add false. So save this. And for example, let's fail the validations. You can see we have this in red, and the send button is disabled. So let's add something like hello@hello.com. We're gonna pass this one, but you can see this one is in green, but the button is disabled. We're gonna add something like hello. We also pass this validation, but this is also in disabled. We're gonna add something like hello, pass this validation, and once we pass this validation, we're gonna check that none of these fields is empty, and also we're gonna check that there are no errors. Then this is going to enable the send button, and you can see that we have the send button enabled. So this is how you can validate fields. And we're gonna add, for example, the functionality to reset the form. So here on the top, I'm gonna add a comma. We're gonna reset btn is going to be equals to get element by ID, and we're gonna select the reset button. It's going to be this one. So inside the quotes, we're gonna reset button, and then I'm gonna copy this. right here, I'm gonna add a comment that says send email and reset button. So we're gonna add the reset button, add an event listener. This is going to be a click event listener. And then we're gonna call this function reset form. So we need to create this form and this function. So we're gonna scroll a little, maybe right here. We're gonna create this reset the form, and we're gonna add function, and we're gonna pass this reset form, and I'm gonna add the variable for this form is called, and I think we haven't created this yet. So we're gonna create the last variable. This is going to be the last one. It's going to be send email form. It's going to be equals to get element by ID, and we're going to pass the form ID, which is this one, email form. So pass this right here, and then we're gonna copy this, scroll to the bottom, and right here when we have this reset form, we're gonna add send email form dot, we're gonna add a method in JavaScript that will reset this form. Is called reset. So save this. Let's make the test. We're gonna add something here, hello at hello.com, something like this, and let's subject, a new subject. Let's say that we're writing something, but then we click here on the reset, and you can see that this is going to clear all the contents in the form. So the validation fields are working, also the email field. Also we have enabled this, and the reset button is working. So the next step is going to be, once we click here on the send button, we are going to simulate that this mail is being sent. So let's continue working in the next video. So let's continue building this project. The last step is going to be to create the event listener when we submit the form, and show these GIFs that we have here. So we're gonna select this send email form, and we're gonna create an event listener, add event listener. In this case, it's going to be submit, and we're gonna create a function called send email. So we're gonna copy this. I'm gonna add this right here. Function send email, and since this is a submit, we're going to pass the event, and also we're gonna prevent the default. Prevent default, like this. So we're gonna write the function that is going to send the emails. So first you can see that here I have these icons, these GIFs. I'm gonna open CSS custom, and I'm gonna comment this line. So the idea here is that these are going to be hidden, and once we click this, those icons or those GIFs are going to be printed, or are going to be in the screen. So we're gonna add first the spinner. So when this form is submitted, we're going to show the spinner. We're gonna call this one, I'm gonna add a variable const spinner. And if you take a look here on the index.html, here on the loaders, we have an ID called send, and also other one called spinner. So we're gonna add const spinner equals to document query selector, and I'm gonna pass this spinner. Then you can see here on the CSS, I added display none. So we're gonna change, once the form is submitted, we're gonna change this to spinner dot style that display is going to be block. So save this, and let's add an email right here, a subject, and something else. We're gonna click here on send, and as you can see we have this spinner, and this is going to give like the impression that this is doing actually something, but of course it doesn't do anything. So you can see that the spinner is there, and it's going to be forever like this. So we're gonna use some JavaScript to hide this spinner after 5 seconds or 3 seconds, and then we're gonna show the other GIF. So we're gonna hide spinner, then show the send email image like this. So there is a function that you can use that is going to delay the execution. This function is going to be called, this function is called set timeout. And you run a function, then you open the curly braces. And right here between the parentheses and the closing curly brace, you add a comma. And in milliseconds, you pass the amount of time that this function that we have here is going to hold before it's being executed. So we're going to add 3 seconds. 3000 is equal to 3 seconds. So after 3 seconds, we're going to hide the spinner, like this. And since this variable is right here, const spinner, we're gonna add spinner that style that display equals none. So after 3 seconds, this spinner is going to be hidden. So we're gonna add again the test. Hello, a message. And we're gonna click here on send. You can see we have the spinner. Let's wait 3 seconds and you can see that the spinner is gone. So we're gonna show the other image because we have another one that is called GIF, is this one. So right after the spinner is hidden, we're gonna show this one. So right here I'm going to create this, show the image, and we're gonna add, for example, const send email img. We're gonna add a document and we're gonna create this element. We're gonna create the element, so this means that we're going to remove this from here. So remove this and we're gonna create an image. So the idea here is that I'm showing you the 2 different ways that you can use this technique to hide or to show an image. So this is going to create the image tag. Then we're gonna add this variable, send image img. Then we're gonna add the source. The source is going to be equals to img, then mail.gif. And we're gonna add also send email img dot style dot display equals block. And this is because here in the CSS you can see that this image is all the images, both images, are using display none. So we need to add display block. The idea is to show this image after the spinner is hidden. So we're gonna add show the image right here. We're gonna document query selector, and we're looking for the ID that is called loaders. This one, loaders. So we're gonna use the ID loaders, and then we're gonna use append child, and we're gonna pass this send email image. So the idea here is that this is going to run once we submit the form. It's going to create these images and it's gonna change the spinner from none to block. After 3 seconds, the spinner is going to be hidden and the other image is going to be showing. So let's add something like this, hello. And we're gonna add something else, a message here, a message. And then we're gonna click here on send. You can see we have the spinner, 3 seconds, and then we have the other GIF. And again, this is going to be forever like this. We can add another set timeout right after. We can add something like after 5 seconds, hide the image, and reset the form. So we can add something like this, set timeout again. So set timeout is going to be equals to a function, and it's going to be after 5 seconds. So we're going to add 5000 here, and we're going to copy this send email form. We're going to copy this. This is the variable that is holding this complete form, and we're going to add a method called reset, same method that we added in this reset form function. So this is going to clear all the values. And also this image that we have added, this send email image, we're gonna add dot remove. So this is going to remove the image from the DOM. So let's save this, and here on the to, we're gonna add the email, a message, something here, and we're gonna click here on send. We have the spinner, 3 seconds. Now we have the GIF, 5 seconds. It's going to be hidden, and the form is resetted. So this was another nice project. You can see that we introduce the usage of different functions. And the best way of learning for me has been building projects. And that's the approach that I'm taking in this course. So this is it for this chapter. In the next chapter, we're gonna continue building more amazing stuff.